2007. Brinka Masra, Southern Iraq. A battered, boxy armored vehicle rolls out of a repair bay in rural England and into a war it was never designed to fight. It's slow, outdated. It looks like something that belongs in a museum. But within weeks, it starts saving lives. The vehicle was more than 45 years old, first built in the 1960s during the height of the Cold War. It was designed for a completely different kind of conflict, wide, open battlefields in Europe, not narrow urban streets filled with hidden explosives. By the early 2000s, the British Army had already replaced it. It was considered obsolete. Retirement was the plan. But the war in Iraq forced a rethink. British troops on the ground were facing a new kind of threat: roadside bombs. Improvised explosive devices hidden in roads, buildings, and debris. These weren't occasional dangers. They were constant. Patrol vehicles at the time were lightly armored. They could stop bullets, but not blasts. When explosions hit, the results were devastating. Soldiers had a name for those vehicles: mobile coffins. Casualties were rising. Attacks became more frequent. Patrols turned into high-risk missions where survival often came down to luck. It became clear that something had to change, and quickly. Instead of waiting years to design and build a new vehicle, engineers made a different decision. They looked backward. They took the old FV-432, long considered outdated, and began rebuilding it from the ground up. It received a new engine for better performance. Its internal systems were upgraded. Mobility improved. But the most important change was its protection. They fitted it with modern armor designed to withstand explosions and resist rocket-propelled attacks. What emerged wasn't just a refurbished vehicle, it was a transformation. The updated version was given a new name: Bulldog. And remarkably, it went from concept to deployment in under 14 months. When the Bulldog arrived in Basra, the difference was immediate. Troops who had once driven exposed now had real protection around them. Vehicles that would have been destroyed by a roadside bomb could now absorb the blast and keep moving. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fast. It wasn't even considered modern by military standards. But it worked. There are no publicly confirmed cases of soldiers being killed inside a Bulldog by roadside bombs in Iraq. The roads didn't change. The threats didn't change. But the outcome did. On paper, the Bulldog still wasn't the most advanced option. There were newer vehicles in development, heavier, more sophisticated, built specifically for modern warfare. But those vehicles weren't ready yet. The Bulldog had one critical advantage: timing. It entered service roughly a year before those newer systems became available. And in a war environment, a year can make a significant difference. In urban combat, it also proved surprisingly effective. It was lighter than many alternatives, easier to maneuver through tight streets, and less aggressive in appearance, an important factor in civilian-heavy environments. It wasn't the best vehicle overall, but it was the right vehicle at the right time. Later investigations revealed a more difficult reality. The risks associated with older patrol vehicles had already been identified before many of the worst incidents occurred. Concerns had been raised. Warnings had been noted, but progress was slow. Budget constraints, bureaucracy, and delayed decisions meant that improvements didn't come as quickly as they could have. Families of fallen soldiers eventually took legal action against the government, and won. In the years that followed, official apologies were issued, acknowledging a hard truth: action could have been taken sooner. The Bulldog was never meant to return to service. It wasn't part of long-term planning. It wasn't considered the future of military vehicles. But when the situation demanded it, it was brought back, rebuilt, and deployed into one of the most dangerous environments of its time. An old design, adapted under pressure, sent into a modern war. And it achieved something simple, but critical. It kept people alive. By the time it is finally retired, the Bulldog will have served for nearly 70 years in one form or another. It will have outlasted the Cold War it was originally built for, and the Iraq War it was unexpectedly called back to serve in. A machine once written off as obsolete became, at the right moment, exactly what was needed. Because sometimes, what looks outdated is exactly what makes the difference.